I'll text her. Like my wife has cell.
Get in touch with her.
When I call her, she doesn't pick it up.
I don't know.
So yeah. Here we have it.
I can write a question about it. I don't know. We should have them right here.
Might need a second sheet.
I thought you were saying that. But for every child,
You want mine? Only because you're actually reading that. Only because you're actually.
Sure.
Yes. Do you want a budget?
Okay, that I can understand.
Oh, you had a nice turnout.
Alright, you killed two. You know what was gonna.
Think about it.
No, my. Local control. You got it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't mind.
I get it. I don't feel that everybody is on call for it.
Well, the fact that we're.
So does channeling canines LLC? Why didn't they just say every week?
What are they doing? What is? Currently teaching dogs.
Teach her the ropes.
Critter speak. TV?
Alright, so I'll be down there 1, 2, 3, 4.
Part of
Being Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
education. Well, you know what?
You'll hear it.
Oh, it's on here? Okay, then it's.
I refuse.
Very good.
So, but you have some physical limitations. You do need somebody else to.
Yeah, that's coming in.
She's still talking to the hiking sticks for balance.
It is expensive.
How's that going?
Going good. How many contracts do we have?
How many need?
Probably around 10.
You're good. But encourage them to bring their own.
Oh, yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah.
You were taking care of one.
Am I?
That's what you said.
What do you want?
I don't care.
You don't care?
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs, chips? I guess I gotta make a lunch to restaurant depot.
That's what you said you were doing.
I know what you're gonna do.
I noticed.
I'm looking, it's over there.
It is over there, I forgot to pop it out tonight, so we'll just.
Oh, let's go.
Of next year.
Right.
Of this year? That explains why you're the way you are.
Yes.
Okay. Please rise for pledge allegiance, being led by Law Ryan, who just arrived.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our second ordinary board meeting of the month of April, third overall, April 28, 2025. We got some minutes to approve. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the April 14th, 2025 meeting be approved? Trustee Fandesa? Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
I just have a small comment. I just thought it a little strange. Omission in the minutes did not mention that Trustee Baskin requested an amendment to the minutes, and the amendment was accepted. Instead, it says motion made by Trustee Van Dest, and seconded by Trustee Bishop, the minutes be amended. So my statement was not in there. So it just not exactly accurate how it happened. That's all.
Anything to change? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the April 21st, 2025 meeting be approved? Trustee Fandesa.
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
Yeah, I noticed in reviewing the minutes, the part where I was talking about the fire department, building improvements budget seemed to be very truncated, actually glossed over. There were some pretty critical numbers and information, that was in that discussion. So I'm just going to kind of do a quick synopsis of this now, and hopefully it'll get captured in tonight's minutes. Basically, it was identified that roughly about 200,000 of the budget in building improvements between fire chiefs and the individual fire departments was above and beyond what the actual fire department requested for that. And the discussion was that we were artificially padding those budgets because eventually that money would be transferred into the fire department equipment reserve fund. And part of that discussion was we kind of wondered why it wasn't being done right away versus basically have it in the annual budget and then transfer it later. So hopefully the gist of that is captured in the next minute. Thank you.
Nothing to change. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No presentations tonight. There is a walk-on motion that we realized we needed to set a public hearing for the next meeting for the Section 8 presentation and the acceptance of the materials that we talked about prior. So that public hearing will be set for the May 12th, 2025 meeting at 7:01 p.m.
Wait, what is this for?
Did we?
At the last meeting that was done.
We were having a debate about this earlier. Check on this for me. In the meantime.
What is this about, Section 8 housing, or what did you say?
Yes,
The program.
the program.
And we need a public hearing?
Yeah, we did this at the last meeting. I'll check on that because
Well, it wasn't the last meeting
Well,
itself.
the last meeting I was at,
Right.
14.
Okay, well, we'll check on this. We'll recap. But either way, if it wasn't, we will add that as a motion. So it's available for discussion on public comment coming up right now. If anybody has a public comment to make, now would be time to raise your hand. And if you are on Zoom, now would be a time to raise your hand on Zoom. Liz.
Liz Cormos, 89 High. I'm very disappointed in this year's budget process and the budget for a number of reasons. The mayor, you delayed the budget workshop till after the public hearing was closed, essentially guaranteeing that no changes would be made to your tentative budget. Over budgeting. An annual budget is the documented details of the financial plan of the local government for only the next fiscal year. In this budget, you are over budgeting fiscal 2026 expenditure lines with plans to roll over funds to fund capital assets, when the proper way to do this is to move funds directly to designated reserve funds. This over budgeting reduces transparency, does not guarantee that funds will be available at the end of the year, and leads to wide variations in year-to-year performance. Recurring revenues are much less than recurring expenses. This is the key measure that the comptroller suggests to look at the financial performance of villages and municipalities. Also, not using reserve funds leads to excessive unrestricted fund balance. According to the Office of the Comptroller, excessively high unrestricted fund balance are normally caused by poor budget practices and unduly high property taxes. There's a greater opportunity for fraud if controls are weak, and these funds should be appropriated or reduced in conformity with a long-term plan. Reserve funds provide a mechanism for legally saving money to finance all or part of future infrastructure, equipment, and other requirements. Avoiding a potential referendum is a poor excuse not to use reserve funds. Exceeding the tax cap while delaying capital planning. The above causes the village to exceed the tax cap, which would normally be okay if the village was properly implementing a capital plan starting in fiscal year 2026. The stated capital funds in your executive summary plan have not been presented and accepted by the board. You just recently announced that $500,000 would be given to the library. There was never a discussion about that. There are no fiscal 2026 funds set aside or transferred for fund balance for DPW, John Street Water Tower, sidewalk loan, Village Hall, court, library, Kelly Park Spring, Iron Spring Park, and the pool surfacing. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Just as a reminder, these were all covered at our workshop in depth. Thank you. Anybody else? Mike, I'm not sure what's so funny, if you'd like to tell me that before you go out.
Your claim that everything was covered thoroughly.
Who's
It's
up for
funny
fun?
on his face.
We'll take that.
Thank you. Mike Icarucci, 3 Encore Drive. I, like some others in the room, personally do not pay any property tax to the village. Also, I hope like everyone in the room, I care about the village and want to see it prosper. As a final preface to other comments, I want to point out that budgeting with finite resources is a difficult task in the best of times. And as the mayor has pointed out, most municipalities in New York State face major obstacles in addressing the need for services amid a generally tax-averse society. Having said that, I want to stress that a budget needs to be accurate and address the needs and the resources of the village. This proposed budget fails in that. For the second consecutive year, the village property tax levy is budgeted to increase by 5%. In addition, water rates are budgeted to increase for all users by 6.5% and by an additional 7.5% for village users. Projected revenues from water sales are approximately $425,000 greater than budgeted expenditures for water distribution. Where do the excess revenues go? The mayor's executive summary talks about a capital plan. I fully support the idea of a capital plan, but I do not see any indication in the budget that funds are being specifically allocated for any of the costly endeavors that are explained in the summary. In the fund balance summary, there is no indication of any reserve fund having been established, even though I believe the board several years ago authorized the creation of a reserve fund for fire equipment. According to the Office of the State Comptroller, the general municipal law allows municipalities to establish capital reserves for future purchases and capital improvements. The OSC says a reserve fund, quote, should be established with a clear intent or plan in mind regarding the future purpose, use, and when appropriate, replenishment of funds from the reserve. Reserve funds should not be merely a parking lot for excess cash or fund balance, unquote. I encourage the board to consider whether a reserve fund might be appropriate for certain items, for example, water and fire and Village Hall and the DPW. I also encourage the board to think carefully about its fiduciary responsibilities to the people you govern. Why is it necessary to exceed the tax cap when many
15
items
seconds, Mike.
are budgeted for more expense than they historically have had or likely will have? Thank you.
And just correct the record, we do have a fire truck reserve fund and a water tower reserve fund.
And none is indicated
Excuse
in
me.
the fund balance.
Thank you. And we discussed how they are handled at the workshop as well.
By hand, by you.
Sir?
You were
Sir?
addressing me.
No, I'm not.
I was finished.
No, I'm
with
addressing,
50 seconds.
I'm addressing everybody. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Yes, right.
I just want to discuss,
Name and address, of course.
oh, yeah, Ray Otten, 16 Middlebrook Avenue.
Thank you.
Just want to discuss B, the motion for the Hope for Children event that's coming up, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. I understand that during the budget workshop, which I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to, there was discussion about possibly cutting the budget for the events group task force, which it was suggested $5,000, which is 16% of the budget. If that had happened, this is one event that we would not be having. This is a critical event for this village. It is centered on abuse, abduction, and trafficking of children. We need to bring that into everybody's life and make sure that we're all on the same page with it. And to cut out something like this would be totally worthless to this village. With that said, the event is happening on the 10th from 11 to 1. I believe we have about 15 different vendors and counselors and other public groups that are going to be there to help us get the word out and educate the families that are going to be there. So hope everybody here will come, and I hope the entire board comes and says, hey, what can I do? Thank you.
Thank you, Ray, thanks for all you do. And I believe, Lauren.
Hello, Law Ryan, 327 Jasper Drive, Town of Milton. Not a village resident, but I do get water from the village of Ballston. Here to specifically talk about the last meeting. I was not able to make it, I was out of town. And comments that the water rates that were mentioned last meeting were comparable to other districts, and that is not a true statement. I think it was even said that the RAC said we were comparable to Town of Milton, which we're absolutely not. We're proposing a 6.5% increase, which would bring the village, for 30,000 gallons to $75.14. And that would increase the out of village because right now the formula is 3 times the village rate, which, sidebar, is what you should not do. You should not be doing times rate. You should set the rate for the outside village based on prevailing rates, not just times in village. So at 225, you've now exceeded Heritage Springs, which has been 223 for 30,000 gallons for many, many years. And the big issue that I've had in the review committee, as well as, and just to talk briefly about the committee work, I'm kind of seeing this with the other committees being presented here, is, in my opinion, it's not the committee's job to come up with the one right answer for the board, right? What the committees need to do is come up with options, viable options, present them to the board, and let you guys partisan fight it out, right? That's going down to the committee level. And there was some partisan, as well as me being the only outside village member on the RAC. I obviously have a different perspective on it, and that's why I volunteered for the job. I also volunteered for it because I wanted to make a substantial change, and that didn't happen last year. It just was 8% across the board. We didn't do what I'm doing right now, is kind of present to the board what we came up with. And, you know, things like the 3 times rate, which should not be the method of calculation. You know, other factors like we don't need to have it as $75.14. Call it $75. A lot of other districts just round to what things, make it simple. The other thing, and if you look at a lot of the meeting minutes for the RAC, it's a lot in there. There was one time I proposed an increase. It actually gained the village $114,000 to pay for the water bill. The only concession, and that was my position as the outside user, was
15
the
seconds.
31,000 gallons to the 51,000 gallons is way out of rate, at a rate of $7.51 per thousand. When you look at Heritage Springs, it's $3.80 per thousand from 9,000 on up. And I will talk at the next available. Yeah, next.
And anybody else? See none, we will move on. Let's see, no consent agenda, let's go to motions. Can I get a motion that the Saratoga County Agricultural Society be authorized to conduct the annual Saratoga County Fair from July 22nd through July 27th, 2025?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion that the events task force be authorized to hold the Hope for Children event in Kelly Park on May 10th from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. A permit will be issued upon proof of liability insurance.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin,
Second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion? Not sure the liability insurance actually applies.
Yeah, I was wondering about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Can we change that motion, alter the last sentence out of there?
Because they're a village
Yes.
function.
Yeah, they're
Exactly.
the village.
As I read it, I'm like saying to myself, I'll read it, but I don't think I'm processing this, okay. So, we're okay to remove that? Thank you. So as amended, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that Sophie France, doing business as Channeling Canines LLC, be granted permission to conduct workshops in the Kelly Park Dog Park from 10 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. and or 2 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. on May 3rd, May 17th, May 31st, June 14th, June 28th, July 12th, July 26th, August 9th, August 23rd, September 6th, September 20th, October 4th, October 18th, November 1st, and November 8th, 2025, with the following rain dates. May 11th, May 25th, June 8th, June 22nd, July 6th, July 20th, August 3rd, August 17th, August 31st, September 14th, September 28th, October 12th, October 26th, November 9th, and November 23rd, 2025. Proof of liability insurance has been provided.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fontaine,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion.
I just want to say thank you to the business owner for doing the right thing and following through with the application. A resident notified us that, you know, they were promoting this, and we just want to ensure the safety of people that are going to the park, especially when there's dogs involved, so.
And this won't disrupt the use of the park during those times. It just uses a piece of the park.
Just a piece of it, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that, can I get a motion authorizing the VSBPA to hold concerts in the park in Iron Springs Park on Thursdays from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. from June 26th to August 28th, 2025. How many dates do we have on this thing? Proof of liability insurance has been provided.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin,
Second.
trustee Fontaine, so, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that all written statements read at a board meeting and submitted to the clerk within 4 days of the board meeting will be attached to the minutes as part of the official record of the meeting. The minutes and these statements will be posted together on the village website with a footnote that drops down with a clarification I will not read.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin,
Second.
trustee Raymond, discussion? All in favor, roll call?
So I can, well, if no one else is gonna go, so I guess I'll discuss. So the one thing that I want to thank Mayor Rossi for pointing out actually is that I did not realize this was actually supposed to be attached to the rules of procedure. I thought it was a freestanding motion, and so for that case, it stopped being active, and so that's why it's on the agenda now.
Just to correct, our attorney was the one that pointed that out. I just re-enunciated that actually, so thank you.
I don't know about that, but so that's why it's on here, and I think it's a good method for increasing communication between residents and the board, and also from the board to residents, because as we know, the minutes should not or cannot have all the details that a statement would have. So I encourage people to vote for this, because I think it's just a good transparency and communication vehicle.
Are you talking having them attached to actual minutes or just in the attachments like they are now?
Just at the end of the minutes, there's the minutes, and then the next page is the statement. And it's always said in the minutes, see attached, and so it would be very straightforward to just scroll down.
Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Baskin?
Yeah.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Price Bush?
I just, can
It's up to you if you want to pass, or if you want to make a statement, or give a vote, it's up to you. You're gonna pass around? Okay, we'll come back.
Trustee Von Dayton?
No, I believe that, the law is pretty clear. at the state level, that it's a summary of the goings-on and the votes. That's the most important part of the minutes. And we have the additional availability of YouTube video. So if folks wanted to hear our individual statements more at length, we encourage them to go online. I would like to make the process a lot easier. It takes a lot of time for minutes to be compiled and put together. Having our clerk has to listen to these meetings over again. So I just think we need to streamline this process a bit. So I'm going to vote no.
Mayor Rossi.
I actually was gonna vote yes until you just brought that up, actually, so we haven't heard that, I'm gonna vote no as well, and well stated, I just.
What is the argument?
Excuse me, this is not time for
Well,
discussion.
we're having a discussion.
No,
it seems
no, we're
like.
We're in
not,
vote.
we're in vote, so I'm stating my
I'm
reason
wondering
for
why,
vote.
Bernadette, you didn't bring this up under
Excuse
discussion
me.
so we could talk about it.
You are out of order right now. We are allowed to give a reason for our votes. I'm giving a reason for my vote, stating I agree with what you just stated. Thank you. The vote was a no, just in case that was confusing. Thank you.
Trustee Price Bush.
I'm voting no, only because I think the statements being submitted, the written statements, I agree that people should feel free to do that, but I think adding them onto the minutes is not the proper place. I think keeping them as the attachments,
Mhm.
I think they belong there more than, I know they're part of the meeting, but it just makes the minutes way too.
Where would you
long.
put them?
Sir,
With the attachments.
we are still in a vote. I have not to the end of the vote yet. Discussion is
Well,
not.
we
for
could
now.
put them with the attachments.
Ben,
That's fine.
please. Okay, so we have 2 ayes, 3 nays.
Well,
The
I'm wondering
motion-
if Mary
excuse me.
is suggesting an amendment to the,
No,
to the.
Ben, it is too late. We are in an open vote right now. It is 2 ayes, 3 nays.
It sounds to me
The
like
motion
Mary's
does
suggesting
not
a
carry.
slight change.
Ben, the motion does not carry. Okay, that's all I can say.
That was a very interesting process that we just went through. No discussion, and then discussion after the vote, but no discussion.
Okay.
And a proposed amendment, but no amendment.
To
Okay,
be clear,
go ahead.
every person, every trustee has a right to explain their vote.
Yeah. Thanks for waiting till that time, so that we could not have a discussion about this as would be appropriate. Increasing transparency and communication.
You provided
the
your
people of
opinion,
this
I
village.
provided mine. I don't know what your problem is with this, so.
I would have responded to your opinion, and maybe trustee Price Bush would be open to amendments that would make her comfortable voting yes.
Can I get a motion to authorize the Park and Tree Board to work with local businesses and property owners to encourage planting and sidewalk openings for street trees and planters throughout the Bee Spawn Bloom program? Plantings shall not interfere with ADA laws, village sidewalk law, or inhibit egress from buildings. Programs to run from June 1st through September 5th, 2025.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa, Trustee Baskin, discussion.
I just want to applaud the Park and Tree Board. Caitlin reached out mainly to figure out who to talk to at the BSBPA for some consultation about some of the programs that they do that encourages beautification and engagement with our businesses. And I just want to applaud them. I think it'll be a really nice addition. I hope you plant some stuff. You're a great gardener, Liz.
Well, it's for commercial.
Well, no, I think there might be a part that residents can get involved, but we'll learn more. I know that they're going to be working on some information, but I hope to see some really beautiful stuff this summer.
Yeah, and also, I'm gonna encourage them to work with the Committee on the Arts, to think about how to display, I think they could be a great collaborative, effort there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the attached proposed final budget for fiscal year starting June 1st, 2025 and ending May 31st, 2026?
Motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
As I stated in the budget workshop, I am not comfortable with the way that we are setting aside reserve funds. I think they should be put in the reserve fund. I don't think we should be putting it in the annual operation budget. That's just for what we're gonna need for that year. Capital planning and multi-year, Funding should be done by reserve fund, that's actually the comptroller guidance. So, I don't, as I said before, I voted for exceeding the tax cap. But the way that this budget is allocated in certain areas, where things should actually be in created reserve funds as opposed to being thrown in an operational budget, that's supposed to be just for the year. I don't think that's the appropriate way to do it. I think the comptroller agrees with that point of view. And I also, I'm kind of at a loss at a logical, rational reason why we're artificially padding some budgets now, and then, well, we'll put them in a reserve later. Well, we already have a reserve fund for fire equipment, so I don't understand. I can't see a logical reason to do that. If you need building improvements, then come up with a number and put a number in there that you're gonna use this year. And then put the rest in the reserve fund if it's gonna be for equipment. Yeah, I just, the way we're going about this, I don't agree with. And I think we should start developing reserve funds, because in reality, we could just keep it in the fund balance. Just the fire department alone would mean that we don't need to exceed the tax cap. So, and we could appropriate those funds and put them in the reserve fund, you know, during the year. They don't need to go in the operational budget. So, I just, there's certain aspects of this budget that I don't agree with.
I have a statement I'm gonna read. Before I read it, I also am disappointed that the board was not more involved in the budget process in terms of having that public workshop early enough that significant changes were even possible. So the timing of it, with the ending of the public hearing required for the 20th and the workshop not till 21st, guaranteed basically that we were unable to have any input into this budget. We were hoping to have a workshop on the 7th, and that didn't happen for reasons I don't understand. So that was disappointing. So I do have a statement to read. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk before I read my statement. Sorry?
Go ahead.
Which statement, son?
All right, I believe Mayor Frank Rossi's 25-26 budget is both bloated and I'd say dishonest. It is bloated because it contains $37,500 more in Eagle Mat Lee's building improvements line than Eagle Mat Lee requested for building improvements, $27,500 more in the Union Fire Department's building improvements line than Union Fire asked for building improvements, $18,572 more in the fire chief's equipment line than fire chiefs requested. In this same line, the mayor snuck in an additional $150,000 for transfer to the fire equipment reserve, despite saying in his summary that his goal is to, quote, guarantee just $105,000 annually in building and truck reserves. The mayor put in $150,000 for sidewalks when, as of March 31st, only $403 was spent this past year. We don't have a loan program in place. At least $50,000, probably much more, will not be spent next year. For this amount of money, we need to create a reserve fund, which can be done by June 1st, and stop talking about doing rollovers. You put in $40,200 for celebrations when only $25,000 is projected to be spent in fiscal year 2025. We could easily save $10,000 with no impact to celebrations whatsoever. Despite saving $81,000 from the ill-advised elimination of the DPW superintendent position this year, the DPW personnel budget is set to increase 9.5%. Without a salaried supervisor, overtime is going to continue to go through the roof. This budget is bloated by at least $150,000. We only need to reduce by about $41,000 to stay within the tax cap, and we could still put well over $105,000 into the fire reserve fund, $100,000 for sidewalks, as well as $41,000 earmarked for a capital reserve. There is no reason the mayor should be asking the residents of this village to pay more than the tax cap for this budget, a total of 5.1% more in taxes than last year, when we are doing so little for capital improvement this year. I would actually support the 5% tax increase if much of that misallocated extra money were taken out of operations and put directly into our highest priority capital improvement needs. Capital improvements are surprisingly underfunded this coming year, despite the mayor's big capital improvement PR announcement. This brings me to the dishonesty in the mayor's presentation of his budget. As already mentioned, the mayor padded the fire equipment lines, which makes it look as if their annual operation needs are much greater than they are, which is deceptive, contrary to a transparent, functional budget, and contrary to controller best practices. It's no wonder the town of Milton doesn't trust the mayor's fire budget numbers. He says in the very first bullet of his budget summary, quote, about $12.5 million in capital spending and the funding approach associated with it is incorporated into this budget, this year's budget. But the actual budget numbers tell a very different story than what is in his executive summary. He says, quote, the village is in a position to use a respectful annual property tax increase of 2 to 2.5% per year for 5 to 6 years to afford all the items, end quote. What he doesn't say is that the 2.5% tax increase is on top of the tax increase we'll receive annually due to his increasingly out of control operating budgets. We can expect tax increases of at least 5% annually for many years to come. The least we can expect with the higher taxes is an honest accounting that puts money where it is needed most. Next, he says, quote, here's a list of projects contemplated in the $12.5 million capital plan, unquote, that he says is, quote, incorporated into this budget. He says $4 million for DPW is incorporated into this budget. His budget contains zero for DPW capital improvements this year, though, quote, this is likely to be one of the first major projects we proceed with, end quote. We don't expect the entire amount to be in this year, but zero? He says $750,000 is incorporated for Village Hall, including, he says in his summary, $100,000 in this year's budget. Yet only $35,000 is in this year's budget, and that is for painting, not the critical repairs of retaining wall and sidewalk vault that he has done nothing to address in his 3 years in office, and apparently 4 years in office. He says $500,000 is incorporated for the library building. There is zero in this budget. He says $500,000 for the courthouse. There is zero in this budget. He says $125,000 to resurface the pool. The budget is $37,500, just a third of what is needed. The mayor could have shown planning for some of these capital expenses by putting some funds into the capital projects fund, designated the H fund, rather than the operating budget. But he didn't do that. Reserve funds could have been created for multiple capital needs, but other than for fire trucks, which he says he is tracking, quote, by hand for unknown reasons, that hasn't been done either. I don't expect many of these projects to be fully funded this year, of course, but 000 shows a lack of seriousness. If the mayor and his budget were actually serious about starting the work this coming year, I'd be open to a tax cap increase for capital projects, because our infrastructure is in terrible shape. But this budget doesn't come close to addressing the immense capital needs that the mayor should have started years ago. Because the mayor spent the past 2 years, quote, evaluating the budget rather than actually addressing pressing needs, we will now have to spend significantly more on improvements thanks to tariffs and inflation. And based on this budget, it looks like we'll be waiting at least another year, despite the mayor's hyped announcement. Either that or the budget we are about to vote on is already obsolete. The mayor's, quote, capital plan is little more than an empty PR ploy at this point, with little actual capital budget planning and very few actual dollars beyond what we have already previously committed or, quote, rolled over from last year. Because the mayor has created a budget that is both bloated and incomplete, in my opinion, and does not give an honest or accurate accounting of what the mayor actually plans to spend this year, I will vote against it.
Thank you, Liz.
Those were my words, Frank.
Thank you very much.
But
Anyway, my turn, if I may. Thank you. First off, I'd like to talk about the budget process. Because this is your 4th year. Talk about my 3rd year as much as you like. The budget process is state mandated. We talked about it. We discussed it. I presented a tentative budget, as is my responsibility. And my job from there is only to facilitate a workshop. It is up to you as trustees, besides myself, who I have always told you I will basically follow along to figure out what the will of the board is at that point to have a workshop. There's no working together to name that workshop on the 7th, or which department heads to have. I stated it multiple times, and eventually it came together on the 21st after I did tell you multiple times, work with your colleagues. You can't work with your colleagues, you can't even look at them right now, let alone work with them, then I don't know what to tell you. But the reality is, the workshop was in your hands the whole time, and you blew it on the 7th, and we still facilitated it for the 21st at the end of the day.
We were looking to
Excuse me,
you to
it's my turn.
schedule that
It's my
workshop,
turn to
and you
talk.
failed to do that.
You had a 7-minute long, I wanna say, give or take, statement, nobody bothered you. My turn.
Okay.
With respect to capital reserves, specifically, there is a fire reserve, and we are working with our accountant to get the $240,000 directly into it. However, until we know what we're going to get from Milton and Ballston in the next years, which we are working on, you cannot automatically put money into a reserve because currently that money is needed for operations. So if there's a shortfall in revenue, it's going to be basically our money or the money that you're spotting that has to go toward operations if we don't get what we need ultimately from the town of Milton and the town of Ballston. That's just a reality. In addition, we don't believe we need the payment this year for the pumper truck. However, it is coming. We believe we are going to owe maybe an interest payment, but we don't have an amortization table with dates on it yet to make those determinations. That's why there's nothing specific at this point of why we're trying to make sure that equipment is covered fully. And again, if there's any excess, they have $3,450,000 worth of trucks to purchase now into 2029, and there needs to be savings in reserve for those events. We are working on it, and for you to keep bringing up H Fund, you didn't even know what H Fund was until this year. You don't budget H Fund. It's a capital projects fund. It's not an operational fund. We sat here all workshop talking about this, and yet you still go there. Okay. Things that scared me during the budget process. Your question, Ben, at one point of what is the value of 1% of tax increase? If you can't answer that after 4 years by just looking at the amount of taxes being raised, I don't know what to tell you, but that scared the bejesus out of me in the whole process.
Personal
Excuse
tax
me.
is where you go. Go ahead. Do your personal tax.
No, that's a reality, Ben, because you're sitting
Go ahead.
here reading statements from, I don't know whom at this point, according to you.
We can talk policy, or you can do your personal tax.
I'm talking
Your
policy.
choice.
I'm talking policy. And the realization of what even a tax is on our property taxes, if you don't know that after 4 years, I don't know what to tell you, but you're gonna sit there and cast stones on somebody who basically sits there for 2 months preparing a budget to make sure that we're covered for now and into the future. Well, your violin's cute there, Liz, but, you know, you could have done things yourself for 4 years when you were, okay. Both of you are out. Both of you are out. Now, both of you. And this meeting will not continue until you both leave.
That's unprecedented, Frank. There have been many more disruptions to this meeting than that.
I wanted them going, Ben.
Excuse me.
That did not result in any kind of kicking
I'm the
people
presiding
out.
officer, and I'm gonna take it from here. Please leave.
I don't even know if
See
that's
why
legal.
I should, I didn't say a word.
Liz,
And she stared at me.
I don't really care who stared at whom. All I can see is a violin playing by you back there, and her looking back at
And
you.
your
You're both out.
insult to him,
You're both
that
out.
his,
You are both out.
his speech
Liz, the
was
rules of
me.
Procedure
That
are
was
clear.
uncalled
You were told to
for.
both stop, and you both didn't. You're out.
I stopped when you said stop.
You continued.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did. Then you gave funny stares back at her at that point. I'm not dealing with a nursery school here any longer. Out.
It would make sense
Ben?
to provide a warning, Frank, before you do something like that. You have never done that, even
Okay.
though
You know what?
someone
then?
is-
They're both going. They're both going. Out.
I don't know what Gina did to deserve being kicked out at all.
I told
Gina,
him to look
out.
at this.
I'd like some, police escort before I go out with her.
Are you serious?
Or how about
You're
a,
disruptive.
how about an
You know.
interpretation from Carla?
You are being disruptive.
Just call 911.
You do it.
It's not necessary, so it's in.
Thank you.
I think that's excessive, Frank. Probably
No,
violates their First
Honestly, the
Amendment
two of
rights.
them are problematic. They constantly go at each other. It's
No.
about time, honestly. Oh.
With respect to tax rates and bloat and the rest, I actually put this together. If I can just attach this, okay, there we go. Took a look at tax rates since 2020 for property taxes in the village. And it's gonna be tough to probably see it for folks at home. I'll get this up on Facebook, but yeah, it's not gonna be that easy to do it, I don't think. But here's what I'll show you. In this, you can see in the blue, the upper bars, that is our property tax rate when assessed value is considered. The orange bars are the property taxes when we consider real values, full values of people's properties in the village. And you can see that over the last few years, instead of taxing the hell out of people compared to their property tax values, because we've seen some good growth in property tax values, the real value of people's property taxes has gone from, in 2022, $4.49.9 down to $3.70.27. Yes, the assessed value-based approach would tell you it's gone up X percent, a couple percent a year basically, or a few percent a year. But in reality, we aren't going after people's property tax increases hard when we probably could, based on the fact that there's more inflow with respect to property values going on, especially in the towns of Ballston, Milton, which carries over to the village of Ballston Spa. And as I stated in the executive summary, we're seeing pretty good growth in numbers consistent with the equalization rates that Milton publishes in the village of Ballston Spa's properties. So all things considered, even with reaching the tax cap this year is included in these numbers, we drop off pretty precipitously to the tune of about 15% over 3 years against people's property values. That's a pretty good success rate for our village, maintaining, as we know, a $5 million-ish fund balance, some of which needs to be put into capital reserve funds, as we're aware, and we've talked about it. But all things considered, when we go and ask our taxpayers, hey, we may need 2 to 2.5% for the next 5 years, I look at these things to say, am I out of bounds for making that request to people? And the answer is probably not, because I don't see an upcoming huge drop in property values. Maybe it recedes a little bit because of different economic indicators or whatever, but this area is still a hot area. And I look at us compared to Scotia, not to name names of other villages, but when you look at Scotia's $17.47 per thousand right now for property taxes against our for town of Milton properties $5.8773 or town of Ballston's $5.6383. I feel kind of good about what we're able to offer and provide here and plan for in the future with $12.5 million of capital planning, some of which we've already named, the water towers, et cetera, and we've handled how we're posturing water rates. Apologies to law because he disagrees, but it is what it is. But long story short, we're doing a pretty good job here as financial minders and tax minders to our residents and property owners to make sure we're not asking too much from them while still giving them what they're asking for along the way. We are. And yes, you'll argue, hey, you batter on Milton for certain things or whatnot, but at the same time, it's also about paying due share of different things, because we do have to be mindful that there is a revenue growth limiter that's going to be hitting the village in different ways, because sales tax wise, unless we get growth from the couple of places remaining that we can build out, and even that would be temporary to a certain degree, we have to be mindful of there's only certain ways we can continue to grow revenue down the line. We don't want property taxes to be it all the time. It shouldn't be it all the time. And we're also going to the county. I was at the county on Friday talking to them about sales tax, what the future is for sales tax. Because that may actually be a way to avoid some of these increases down the line for $12.5 million. There are different ways to approach it. It was an interesting conversation. I'm going to be speaking with the comptrollers, the state comptroller soon about that discussion, because they don't have the data to even show what we are responsible for creation-wise in the Village of Ballston Spa, or anywhere else in the county for that matter, because the state doesn't give them that data. And how do we make a good decision on, hey, what's the appropriate thing to ask the state for our sales tax? Maybe we could go for a 0.5% or 1% village local sales tax addition. But what does that mean? I have an idea what it means. Percent's probably about $400,000 a year. A lot of money. But we don't know that for sure, and we're going to go to the state and find out and have an educated conversation about that down the line with our business community, with our residents to say, what do you think? But these are the types of things we're planning for and trying to do, because we know we have needs. We have not just $12.5 million of needs, we have tens of millions of dollars of infrastructure needs. We picked off $12.5 million in terms of lowest hanging fruit right now that needs to be handled immediately. Which gets me to the library discussion, which I was going to save to a certain degree for mayor's announcements, but we're being told we are supposed to prioritize reserves in a certain way. How the hell do you prioritize anything if you don't know what's going to break first? And you stick it in a reserve fund, you can't touch it, and then what do you do? So, did I think the library would be the first thing that might need $250,000 worth of stuff right now? I did not. Guess what? It's the first thing that's going to need $250,000 of stuff right now. And you make it as political as you want, Ben. This weekend on my Facebook page, there was a moment to unify as a board to say, hey, I agree with the mayor, we've got to do these things.
I just want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on. Email the board.
You were given a full explanation with the rest of the world because...
Facebook.
Well, email, actually. Oh, you weren't emailed?
No, I don't believe I was.
I gave the screenshot of the email actually on my page. Maybe go look at it.
Did you put it on the village website?
Yes, actually, or no, not on the village website, because I don't control the village website and Jen doesn't work on weekends. So we got it onto the village Facebook page that day. Okay, and the library website had it by the end of the weekend as well. So we covered the bases as best we could under those circumstances to let the world know, hey, we've got some issues going on over there. But again, you don't know what's going to break first. You don't. And realistically, yes, DPW is going to probably be one of the next things. And the new fire truck's going to be one of the next things. $2.5 million, and we're going to be getting those plans very soon for that as well. 4-year lead time on that. And so I don't make these decisions alone. I go to our fiscal advisor to say, with Melissa, you know, our treasurer, hey, what do we do? How do we approach this? How do we make sure that we're not having a huge effect on our finances here, or at least a manageable effect on our finances? And so they tell us the use of bans over a certain period of time, a use of a bigger takeout bond at a certain point within 5 years. And we begin to figure out, how do we manage this? How do we meander through these different challenges? You know, Carla, Andrew has been great to work with. He was your recommendation, and we've had nothing but a great relationship with him because he's extraordinarily bright, tells us where we're going to gain, where we'll lose, etc. We don't just haphazardly spend our residents' money or our fund balance or anything else. We don't haphazardly go out and ask for tax increases. We actually develop plans, because those plans weren't handed to me when I took office, or to you, they weren't. And maybe for you guys too, but you didn't create them while I wasn't here. So we've had to sit back for 3 years and develop plan after plan after plan and execute them now. So you can talk all you want about H-fund this and reserve that. We're doing these things. It's being budgeted legally and appropriately. be. We've talked with Bob Fox, our accountant, we've talked with Andrew Watkins at Fiscal Advisors, and these are the things that developed from those. Sure, we could puff out numbers on both sides of the budget to represent, oh, here's a spend, here's a reserve, and all this other stuff. Okay, we could do that, sure, I guess. But at the end of the day, the operational budget is what we are passing right now. And our operations are all taken into consideration from all of our department heads, etc. And we're going to be borrowing a lot of money. And those loans won't be payable immediately because of the way those tables work. And so that's the thing you've got to begin to grasp. We're going to be going into debt soon. Debt instruments, that is. And that's going to be reflected accordingly. Because eventually it lands on the amortization table, the last page of the budget in case you didn't know, and goes into the debt lines accordingly. And the state requires the debt lines to match the amortization table. We learned that the hard way. Nobody seemed to give us that instruction along the way, because if it doesn't, it affects our constitutional annual debt limit. These are accounting things that you can talk about controller all you want. We talked to the controller's folks and others along the way to learn all this and meander through this budget. Again, you've been here for 4 years. I don't know why you're suddenly taking such an interest in it, but let's get it right if you're gonna.
Good point. We should get it right. The fact that there's going to be so much financing and so much money involved makes it even more important that we keep very good track of the money and don't misallocate into operational expenses and put it into the H fund, the capital fund, or reserves, so that everything can be very well tracked. It's even more important than it's ever been. And that's all I'm saying is we got to be serious about how
And
we're
we're
tracking
working
these
on
things.
getting the reserves officially in the right spot so that we're reporting them accurately on our AFR, because you can budget all you want. The reality is the AFR is the actual money, the actual what's in your accounts at the end of the year.
And we could have a building improvement reserve, and we still don't. The only
You couldn't spend it for the library right now because it would be a type and not a specific, and you'd have to wait 30 days every time you'd have to spend the money. Right now, we've got to go spend $250,000 on the library immediately.
Well, there you go, there's $250,000, so you have 30 days, and 30 days later, that money's appropriated. I mean, as long as you lump things and actually plan expenditures, a type fund isn't necessarily that difficult.
You would not be able to spend the money because it's a permissive referendum every time.
Right, and so
That's
you
the
have to
problem.
wait 30 days until you can spend the money.
Okay.
We've waited years, I mean,
No, the
doesn't seem like a big
library's
hurdle.
waited a week right now and needs to get things off the ground.
So the only email I have from you is you on Saturday or any time about the library is you referring Channel 10 to your Facebook page.
Okay,
That's it.
with the link.
Yeah, to your
Give it to
Facebook page. So, but tell us, what has happened to the library? Last
It's
time we talked to
in the
you,
Facebook page, Ben.
I read your
everything-
Facebook page and you didn't say much. You just said it's gonna be closed for months now. But what happened? Because a week earlier you said, oh, it's gonna be closed for a week.
Should that not be in the mayor's announcements?
Well, go for
All
it.
right, that's fine, that's fine.
Budget.
I'm just saying,
I
we're
just
talking about, I don't
wanna
even know what's happening with the library.
clarify something with your graphs, like, so
These-
the blue is taxes by assessment, right?
Right, and
What does every municipality in New York State do?
that's fine, but there's a reality.
Okay, so the other one
Yeah,
is
but
completely
No,
irrelevant.
actually, Sean, it's not completely, because when the towns go and reassess to 100%, the orange bar is actually what will be paid, and they're at the same level, because that's what the reality is. The
How
equalization rate,
often do
they're going to need to
they're
immediately,
going to estimated market values, estimated, it's not real, they're gonna do 100% of that.
they have to at a certain
Every 5
point.
years. Every 5 years, a municipality is required to do a revamp.
Right, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's at the 100% of the
Yes.
estimated market value.
Yes, every 5 years you have to bring yourself up to.
And if
at
they
least-
don't, and they hit the 50% equalization rate, which Milton is probably going to do in the next 3 years, especially with Milltown, if that comes online, it's gonna almost require it at that point, then they're gonna have to do it, and we are going to request that Ballston do it at the same time, because you wanna see a messy tax situation, have one of them at 100% and the other at 60%, and see how that goes for everybody, because people aren't gonna understand that to save their lives, and we're gonna have to try to explain it, and good luck to all of us on that one, because it's just not gonna be something that people are gonna grasp. It's tough to understand, I get that.
Yeah, what people really care about is how much cash is coming out of my pocket, because even if their house goes up in value, that's not cash in their pocket, so they're gonna see, all right, last year I spent X amount, now I'm spending X plus 5%, X plus 7%, and again, that's what they care about, and I think, yeah, you're right, we are gonna have to do 5%, that's why it's so important to be clear and transparent and smart with how we spend the money, so that people know it's being spent correctly.
Since I've been mayor, since you've been deputy mayor, I think inflation's gone up about 13% in those years. And our tax rate in Ballston has gone up less than that. And our tax rate in Milton has gone up pegged to that just about, which is the reality that I'm actually proud of, because that tells you that we're not going and beating down our taxpayer, okay? I'd love to see Scotia able to say the same thing, because I honestly feel bad for them when you add in their county tax on top of that. They're absolutely getting murdered by property taxes over there. And they do give a couple more services than us, but my God, that's a lot of money for a homeowner over there at $1,747 a thousand, with a very similar equalization rate to what Milton has right now. That's just a reality here. With respect to sidewalk and vault outside here, we are waiting for Jack to give a price to do it ASAP, so it actually may be a 2025 event. It may not reach the amount needed for an RFP at that point, because of a different approach that they're confident about. I think that's about all I have taken down during your discussion, but I think it all needed to be said again. It was said at the workshop, but we'll say it again. Let's give Mary or Bernadette an opportunity, because we've all had our chances.
I'll just be brief. For me, I appreciate that we strike a balance between necessities and quality of life, sort of efforts, we continue to, support the arts, support community events, but also we are getting to capital plan stuff. But, for me, I think, it's been said many, many times that the village has not done enough for fire departments. And I appreciate that this budget is more aggressively addressing that. I know that's something that's on the mind of our towns, that we're also putting in our fair share. So I very much appreciate that that's in the budget now, a little bit more thoughtfully.
Thank you. Mary?
And I'm horrible with numbers. I'm glad that you are so good with it, and you've got people who can help you if you need the help. And talking to residents, they seem to understand everything that needs to be done in the village, and no one has said that they thought a tax increase, no one disagreed with it, they understood it. So just talking to the people that I've talked with, makes you feel good that, it's on the right track, it's going to the right departments that it needs to go to.
You and I sat in a meeting last week when we were starting to discuss what was going on in the library, and with the library board members that we had in here. And just to be able to say to them, we can handle this, we can do this ultimately, if it comes down to it. And they understand it's a majority board scenario that has to be approved and everything else, but to be able to say to them, there is a way, we know financially to do this, because we came up with $500,000 in a capital plan approach and know how we would pay for the debt service related to that over time. Just be able to say that to them and see the relief on their faces, because these are some of the hardest working people I know. The library board in our village, we are so fortunate to have who we have on that library board. You get firsthand as liaison all the time on that. But to be able to say that and see the relief on their faces on that discussion was really special to me, because you could tell how important it is for them to know they have a way to make this happen. They're not going to have to do all the fundraising in the world in limited time because of the disaster and everything else that comes with it right now. And so,
Does insurance cover this?
some of it, Ben, but not all of it. Because there's some other things that we're going to need to take care of, their pre-existing conditions, and we need to hunker down and get those done now, and the best time to do it is now when it's already in a shutdown mode, to get that all taken care of, get the roof done as well, which is a 60 grand premise right now, the entire roof. We gotta make sure that that building.
How did that get damaged?
It's not damaged per se, it's over time, and Nymer, when I talked to Henry Van Veer, when Vandy, how, help me here, it's Vandy Heber.
Oh, Henry, I'm sorry, Henry Vandenhever.
Thank you, I always mess up the man's name. Henry said to me that Nymer is actually considering not covering roofs that don't have 10-year maintenance any longer for that exact reason, that if you don't do the maintenance, they're getting absolutely creamed right now with respect to roof costs. And they will not pay replacement value anymore if they go this route, which he says they're not there yet, but they're really strongly considering it for survival purposes, that they're going to not give replacement value, but just actual value, which for a failed roof is how much at that point, realistically. So, yeah, roofs matter.
All right, so in announcements, you're gonna go through what we're doing for the library, or what needs to happen for the library.
I will go through as much as I can on that. So, long story short, being able to tell them was important. And so, I'm glad we can, I'm glad we're in a position to do it ultimately, and that we were already planning on doing something in that realm. It just was perfect timing in that respect, even though it's a crappy situation for them. Okay, I think we've all had our chance to say stuff. We good to go for a vote? Roll call, please.
Trustee Baskin?
No.
Trustee, Trustee Raymond?
No.
Trustee Price Bush?
Yes.
Trustee Von Dayton?
Yes.
Mayor Rossi?
Yes, 3 to 2 ayes have it, and the motion and budget are approved. We need to add motions here with respect to water and sewer rates based on the fact we passed this, and so they will be available for 90 seconds of discussion during those, because they're technically walk-on. It's actually, I'll put it into one. Can I get a motion approving the following changes to water and sewer rates for the period starting or encompassing June 1st, 2025? A 6.5% rate increase for all water, a 6.5% rate increase for all sewer, and after those changes, a 15% rate reduction in-village sewer only, and a 7.5% increase for in-village water only. The last two, for point of clarification, is with respect to making sure that storm sewers are properly moved from the G fund to the A fund. Trustee Fandesa, Trustee Price Bush. We'll go to discussion after I ask the question about whether we have anybody that wants to give comments. Oh, I'm shocked. But 90 seconds long.
90 seconds. So I'm gonna keep
You
this.
can do a name and address, I don't count that.
That's it, Law Ryan, 327 Jetsky Drive, Town Milton.
And Jen?
So I'm gonna give you,
Jen,
Yeah, go.
sorry, not counting against you, Law.
okay.
And go.
Just gonna give you the highlights, and then I'm always at the pleasure of the board to answer any questions about what this is from the RAC. Here's what I believe the Board of Trustees should do. Set an in-village rate of $85. Once again, for 6 months, 30-gallon usage. That's $10 more than I think what is being proposed now. That's a cup of coffee a month more, and that goes in line with the town of Niskayuna in the spring of '23, increased their base rate from $30 to $78 to cover the cost of production. $85 costs the cost of production to provide in-village residents. Right now, anything less than that, the village general fund is subsidizing water usage for the village residents. Number two, set the outside village rate at a specific dollar amount, not at 3 times the in-village rate, set it at $2.24. That's rounding up from what the Heritage Springs cost is. And Heritage Springs is a for-profit company that is setting these rates, which is gonna be lower than what the village is gonna be charging outside village users, right? Set a new rate of 31,000 gallons to 75,000, what I call a residential usage rate for outside of the village, and have that be a reasonable additional rate per thousand. Right now, Harrod Springs is $3.80. A lot of other districts in the area are $4.40. I recommend anywhere in there for that 31 to 50. And then last is set an excessive rate for 75 and more for $8, which is an average of the top three categories.
Anybody else? Eve?
Hi, Eve Kenyon, 50 North Street, Ballston Spa. I have an idea of how we can get more money for our village. We need to have some speed traps. And I guarantee you, if you put a cop car on Center Street, which is kitty corner from my house on North Street, you would probably be giving a ticket every 5 minutes because cars are whizzing through on my 2-block long street. And by the time they reach my house, which is in the middle of that 2-block stretch, they're going 40 miles an hour. So anyway,
Not to interrupt you, but technically, the discussion for this motion has to be on water rates and sewer rates.
okay,
However, I do want to give you an upshot. I want to
okay.
invite you Friday morning, if you're available at 9:30 a.m. to join Danny Nelson, Scott Kearns, Jen Moskowitz, and me on my birthday at Dunkin' Donuts to talk about that area's traffic woes currently, because Danny had reached out today, and we're gonna have a discussion over some coffee and then walk those areas to see what we need to change signage-wise, where we might be able to put some of your speed signs, et cetera, up in the north end. So if you're available 9:30 a.m. on Friday, come and join us, okay?
Okay, my fault. I thought we were to the public comment part. Sorry.
But I did want to invite you to that as well, because it'd be great to see you on my birthday. I appreciate you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And anybody else? Seeing none, board discussion now, sorry.
I mean, Ryan brought up a pretty reasonable plan. I mean, should we consider that plan before we vote on it?
They racked it and they didn't move forward with it. It was actually pretty well knocked down. Not to.
Right, the RAC doesn't decide, we do.
No, I understand that. I'm just letting you know that the RAC did consider that one, and I did hear some of the discussion on that one. Their view wasn't, you know, I guess their view as village residents was the concern on that. I think the one thing I will say about comparing Harrod Springs to the village water system, what they did develop was that overall with the increases, we were in a comparable rate scenario, I mean, not identical, but comparable. Second, remember, Harrod Springs advertises on their website that they have water restrictions in the summer. They have a water, or at least had a water quantity issue. They are tapping in with Rollins Hollow Waterworks now to provide water, and I'm going to have to assume at some point the charge for usage of Rollins Hollow Waterworks water is going to creep into their rates as well, because you can't think that Rollins Hollow Waterworks is going to charge par value for water that Harrod Springs is serving basically in that scenario. So I think there are a lot of facets here about outside water companies and usages that are going to be a little bit weird. Still to come, especially as we do our reorganization with water districts going on over there. So while I'm cognizant of the concerns, I am also aware of the costs and the rates and everything else. And hey, much to Law's enthusiasm, I hope, we will no longer be at 3 times the rate because of the 7.5% increase that we're doing to swap out sewer and water costs for our residents in village. So it's no longer pegged at 3 times, which is a first for a long time. So we're not immovable on that one.
Isn't that in the law?
It is not in the law. It was removed. Yep. I remember back in, what was it, 19 maybe? Or
Well,
21?
yeah, it's part of separating, I think,
Yeah.
water and sewer.
Yeah. So, yeah,
So that's just
it
for
was.
1 year? Yeah, my concern is making motions verbally that are significant and not putting it in paper where we can think about it ahead of time. I know there's some of this was presented I'm not sure where you did put it down. The executive summary, I don't see it here.
It was an executive summary, and it's, the amounts that were in the budget were consistent with the expectations for making those changes. So that's why
Right.
I'm saying that it's now consistent with the
Right.
budget to make these changes.
Right, so I prefer having things written down in front of me where I can consider them and understand exactly all the nuances. Plus, it's my impression that what happened to the ZAC is similar to what happened to the Revenue Advisory Committee. Certain people just decided not to come anymore, and it sort of fell apart. I think you discouraged it, Frank. You said, I'm not going to support certain ideas. And I'd like to see them actually come up with some kind of consensus or some set of ideas to bring here. They did have a number. So for example, you have your rate, but then you have a separate fee that is designated for repairs. That is very clear to everybody what that fee is for and who gets it. And
Well,
so,
the game changer, don't forget, Ben, is gonna be Milltown. If we've been fighting hard, some of the engineering money we've spent has been to fight to serve Milltown, to make sure that our district was honored and expanded based on the needs over there, and that we're going to be able to work with the town in creating a water district or using a water district, I should say, to create what's needed at the pump house and all that stuff. So that calculus changes. I'm hopeful, honestly, that this is actually the last increase for a while, because that could be $210,000 of annual revenue. Now, obviously, we may have to pay for some expenses off some of that. I would love to see us maybe begin to talk about going away from meter cards and going to an electronic system finally. I think Milltown will install meters themselves that are going to be compatible to that idea, but we've also been looking into attachments to existing meters that may allow for electronic read ultimately. But those will cost money, and we can't tell people, hey, you're going to have to pay another $200, $300 for this new device. We've got to be able to fund that in some format or another, and we don't qualify for the grant because of our median income right now and for our cheap water rates overall. I tell you, that's part of it. Don Rhodes says it all the time to me. And so we got to be prepared for that, to use some of that money. Also, as I always say, Bob Kavanaugh's not going to be here forever, and we're not pushing him out the door, never would. We appreciate what he does for us at McDonald's wage, if you're lucky, on some days, probably half McDonald's wage, if I look at it. But, you know, we have to also start planning for the future for the water department that's going to have, in Milltown alone, possibly 504 more customers plus the commercial units as well. Okay, we're starting to get to a size where we have to have a better automation of the system. We're doing it by hand the way we do it, and with Edmunds and all that stuff, and the meter cards was great for a period of time, but as we continue to grow, it's 2025. We got to begin to become 2025 once and for all.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Let's go to roll call just at this point.
Trustee Baskin?
I'll vote yes because we need the funds, but I'd like to encourage the board to encourage the Revenue Advisory Committee to come up with some additional ideas of how water can be funded and revenue generated.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Price Bush?
Yes.
Trustee Bonner?
Yes.
Mayor Rossi?
Yes, and I just want to say, Law, though irritated you went to the Times Union, I will say for the record, because you could have come to the board first, that discussion, and maybe we could have had a better discussion at the time you went to the Times Union instead of, you know, doing it at the budget meeting, ultimately here. We don't discount or disregard your feelings on this. It's at the same time, as you heard me say during the budget discussion in the previous motion, that we are limited as a village in what our revenue options are going to be down the line. We don't want to become Scotia here. We are cognizant of what market rates are overall, or at least what competitive rates look like in general zones. We continue to balance that, and then we also have the knowledge that if we get the good fortune to have a service like at Milltown, we reconsider these numbers to make sure we're doing it the right way. This isn't to punish anybody. This isn't to get rich off anybody. This is to make sure that we have a protection of a village that has limited options over the next 5 decades, I would say, overall, as things change around here. So, thank you though for your comments on it.
May I respond to any of that? or just want me to
Wait for public comment number 2,
Okay.
you'll have that, 3 minutes there, is probably the best place to do it. Mayor's announcements, I will keep it brief, but discuss ultimately the library in full, which meant, again, nobody was getting more information on Saturday, because we were still trying to figure out what to do on certain things here, exactly what the testing showed. We knew the test had shown some things that were problematic, so to be more specific, joint compounds in some of the walls did show signs of asbestos. This is not to be a huge concern when you bring the word up, obviously, people panic. This is a continuously tested library during work periods, because we do have some things from the age of that building that we have to continue to test for. And so this is the first time we've ever received a level like that in the history of doing the testing. So knowing that, obviously we've got to shut things down out of respect and safety at that point. We do have to go for a variance at this point for DEC purposes, or DOH, I can never remember which one gets the variance on this request. But to do this work, we have any other work we're gonna do that may create some kind of impact asbestos-wise or vermiculite-wise or anything like that, we need to bundle all those things into one variance. So the most sensible thing to do for us right now, knowing what we know inside the building, is to package all work that we need to do into one variance and get the approval for it and take it on all at once. So we didn't necessarily think that that was gonna be the case before this disaster occurred, and like I said in the email / post, etc., you gotta kind of take a horrible situation here and try to make it into a much better situation if you can do it, and we can. That's the reality here. So yes, insurance picks up what happened downstairs minus deductible. Any pre-existing things in the attic that need to get removed at this point, if that's on us, we know that, we understand that.
Is that related at all to the flood, or just?
No, that's just a question of, the joint compound stuff may or may not be linked to something that may have happened from the attic stuff that may have flowed down. We don't know for sure, but at this point, knowing that that has happened in the joint compound inside the walls, let's just get it out at this point. Get anything that may be questionable out of that building. It doesn't need to be there anymore, and that way we don't have to worry about this any longer down the line. And I think it makes it a little bit easier if we take care of this stuff for the library board to go and raise money for their next phases, because there's not so much anxiety about these things creeping up. The roof, obviously, like I said, we've got to redo the entirety of the roof. $60,000 on prevailing wage was one of the prices we got. We'll have to go to RFP on it, but at least to give you knowledge of what the general cost was, we asked somebody to reprice something that they originally gave for part of the roof and not using prevailing wage. They gave us the corrected using prevailing wage for the entirety of the roof, and that was over $60,000 for that.
But nothing has happened to the roof, it's just something was discovered about its
The roof has
condition.
been in bad shape for a while, and so we can't technically do that work because of the disruption it could continue to cause in that attic zone
Okay.
without a variance too. There was debate on this back and forth about how to handle that. Now that we know we're gonna do all this work, just throw it into the pile of variances that are gonna be needed and get it done. That probably can get done the earliest if we're not utilizing the building, because what's the disruption gonna mean anyway at that point? So I'm not the pro on this. I can only go by what the library board's folks have been discussing. I defer to them a lot on this. I'm just here, as Mary witnessed, to say we're here to help. We're going to do what we can. This is not a political football. It shouldn't be a political football. It needs not be a political football.
I was just trying to find out what's going on. I wasn't trying to politicize anything. It was like, something happened, what happened, why don't we know about it? So I'm glad, thank you for sharing that tonight.
How old is the parts of the roof? I imagine some of it.
So it's original, I think.
Yeah, okay. Is there any plan regarding the collection and how that is protected during this work?
I am not 100% sure. I don't think that area was affected during the actual disaster. I think that stuff was mainly downstairs, I think, by that point, but we can get Andrew to give us a report on that for sure. But, you know, long story short is anything activity-wise that has to do with an asbestos type situation, we have to handle with probably tenting of some sort and protection tarping, if anything remains in there, or possibly foam removal for the time being. And so that discussion has to be had. But again, we're trying to expedite this so that we have this back up and running for most of the summer at the very worst, because we know the importance. One of the things I'll say is that, you know, the question about staffing and the staff that won't be able to work in the building for the time being. A couple of them have opted out. We gave them the option because I said, we can find a lot of tasks to be done office-wise or outside here that we just don't get to. For instance, the parking schedule, and verifying and validating the parking schedule once and for all for the entire village. Somebody could do that and catalog it, you know, like instead of library cataloging, we'll, you know, a parking catalog here and get that done. And so one of the workers may have had about 15 hours they can play with respect to us. And they do that, we'll probably pay them a DPW part-time wage, because that's technically alongside a DPW task, a little bit more money to do that. We're just trying to be fair in what we're asking and expecting in that situation. But others are going to work from home, develop programs. Some will do reading at BACC, the read-alongs. Andrea will continue to, you know, work. She's salary anyway, but you know, work on the matters related to the library. So we wanted also this weekend get the options out there because we care about our library clerks. They are probably one of our worst paid categories in the village, but they always show up, they don't complain, and we appreciate what they do. And hey, if the money matters to them or they want something to do, we're here for them. We want to give them that opportunity.
Thanks for working on that. Those are good ideas. When do you think we'll have a real estimate of the cost?
I'm going to tell you it's probably $250,000 in total right now. Knowing what the attic discussion was, but it was a very rough figure, so I'm going to try to lead on the liberal side of numbers right now a little bit. In the roof being 60, I'd say figure on a worst case $250,000, and if it's worse than that, I'll let you know. I'm hoping that it gets contained in more like a $200,000 issue. This is absent insurance stuff, okay? So I'm talking about other stuff besides what needs to be taken care of by insurance.
We have a contractor in mind, or?
Right now, we're using ServPro to help us deduce what to do. Then we have to talk to Ambient, who's kind of our asbestos professional that we use usually. We're gonna have to marry these two at some point to figure out how to maintain it so that we get our insurance coverage for what's happening downstairs and we get what needs to be done upstairs handled. Carla has already looked into a little bit of the question of, is asbestos abatement a specialized task that does not require bidding? It's inconclusive, although there are some rules that I found today that I asked her to have reviewed as well that might give us a little bit more chance to say it is a specialized task by the state of New York standards that would not require the same level of bid process that you might assume with RFP, et cetera. You know, if you have to RFP though, you can do it in a week for the open period, but no matter what, you gotta come up with a plan for the variance to show. So you would have kind of the documentation you need for an RFP, but just to know what our responsibilities are for a bid process and whatnot, we're just trying to make sure we are fully informed. Again, baptism by fire. We don't assume we know any of this stuff coming into this. We don't want to, honestly, but now we do have to know it.
Has it been, the asbestos been tested yet as to whether determined or not friable or non-friable?
I don't know about the joint compounds. It's vermiculite is what's going on upstairs, so in the attic. Yeah. So, but like I said, every phase of everything done in that building has been tested, because you gotta make sure it's not pouring through walls or something like that. Never had it. So I don't know if this was a disruption caused by everything that happened over the last couple of weeks in there that may have caused something. Maybe the joint compound already had that in it and it wasn't actually related to upstairs. I don't want to wait and find out. You know, again, this happens in 2 years or something and we hadn't taken action on it and maybe it was related after all. So that's the stuff we've got to, I think, go after and attack in a situation like this ASAP and make sure that everybody's out of the building. I'm not concerned that anybody had an exposure of some sort like that. That's not what this is about. But hey, why would you put somebody in a building right now knowing the status it's in? Just out of consideration for everybody. I think that's plenty for one night. Treasurer's report, if I can page back real quick here, it was brief. Budget workshop, was attended by 5 village residents, mayor, budget officer for the village, treasurer, the village trustees were all in attendance, budget was voted on. Water sewer, our office is starting to prepare for the printing and sorting of water meter cards that will be sent to residents by June 1st. Please contact the village office if you would like to receive your bill via email. That is an option for folks out there. Rebecca and Melissa are working with Bob Kavanaugh to re-levy past due water and sewer accounts for those who receive the service who are inside the village users. This year, the deadline for any water or sewer bills for the inside users will be accepted at the village until the end of April, so we're almost there. If those inside the village customers have not paid, we will re-levy their balances, including penalties, onto the village tax bill. Sales tax down. April sales tax for the county was down 5.28%. Year to date right now, it is down by 3.6% for the county, and the village will receive 102,346 before the end of April 2025. But again, you can see why part of my discussion with the county is looking at sales tax and the future of sales tax, and what we can do possibly to begin to appreciate and take hold of the realities and not punish anybody again, but know what we can do to maybe not fall behind on the sales tax situation moving forward. So that's a discussion for another day. Let's go to liaison reports, and we'll start with Trustee Pendenza.
Okay. BSBK, the Business Association, they had a networking breakfast at the National Model Museum on Tuesday, May 6th from 8 to 9:30. They are also hosting an Inside Ballston Spa event on Tuesday, May 20th. It'll be at the Milton Community Center, 8 o'clock to 9:30. It's a partnership with the Regional Chamber, the Capital Region Chamber. There are several panelists. They'll be discussing kind of tourism and trades also in the area, and it's more focused on Ballston Spa. Swiping through Dana's text. Also, they're really excited about this. The BSBPA has been working on getting their visual map guide that they do for the community to be more updated and accessible by digital means. And it's something, it's to print that out every year and get it right. It's a big undertaking. I know how hard they work on it. This will be a little more user-friendly. It'll also be something that they can adjust and add to throughout the year. So eventually that'll be launching in May, probably by mid-May. And then also First Friday is this weekend. It's the student art, the community focus, and there'll be art for our students in the area at the different shops. And so we encourage people to go out and spend time in our small businesses, but also to enjoy the creativity of our kids in the community. This is the second meeting I did this. I printed out the fire department report and left it on a printer. That's not very helpful for any of us. I will bring it for the next meeting. But I did want to note that Union Firehouse had their old timers dinner. Always amazed by the amount of years some of these folks have given. I forget.
60 in one case, 58.
Yeah, but in aggregate, I think it's like 400 years
Yes,
for
over
some,
400.
some of these folks. Also, just one of the things that is done at both dinners is they read the names of the firemen who have passed away, and they ding the bell, and that is always moving. It's family names we all recognize. And it's gone, from the early 1900s. So it's just a very moving gesture. And the fire department is doing a bigger effort to show the kind of work that they do. They had a video compilation made utilizing cameras on our trucks and also on some of the hats to kind of show the work they did. They had like 500 calls in the last year, so it's significantly higher. And one of the firemen joked, like, it used to be a big deal if they made it to 100, and now we're at 500. So we have a very, very busy fire department, and like I said, I'll bring the numbers for March next month. Very sorry about that. And yeah, that's all I got for tonight.
Just so, I don't think you mentioned it, the Village White Garage Sale.
Oh, no.
So I
Not
guess
really.
Bernadette, after getting a couple inquiries about the Village White Garage Sale this year, because normally we'd say it's the second weekend in June and it speaks for itself and it's unofficial and all that stuff, even though it's in the code. Then we realized, well, okay, which weekend's the second weekend in June, because the 31st is a Saturday and the 1st is a Sunday. So just talking with BSBPA, because also an awareness that the Belmont weekend is the weekend of the 6th and 7th, just to confirm they're on the same page, that we probably should be doing it on Father's Day weekend the week later. And that is where we're landing. That it should be the second full weekend of June, in this case, the 13th and the 14th of June.
And of note, that's the farmer's market, it's gonna start that
Four-
weekend as well.
I should
so.
say also the 14th and 15th of June, my bad, 14th and 15th is a Saturday and Sunday. And Farmers Market, as she stated, is that Saturday, starting in the morning on that Saturday.
Go buy your greens, eat your veggies.
One thing to, Ben, not to take away from your report, but the park is well underway right now, and moving forward, just to give perspective on timing for everybody, the paving bricks are obviously getting installed to get edge at a certain point, and we're also having a meeting tomorrow to make sure that we know how to conduct the base of the pavilion. Pavilion, they're getting worked on. That may be past Belmont weekend. If it is, we can tent the base for that weekend if it comes down to it. But that one, it'll be a hit or miss scenario as they prefab that and then bring it over. The fountain should be installed though in that time frame, so that's good news. Sod will be May 23rd, I believe, is the goal date for sodding the entirety of the park, so that should look great. And also, DPW is going to be taking on the redo of electricity inside the park. Mike Morrissey is a pretty good expert at that and has worked with Labella to figure out what we need to install a new panel and bring down the triple or three-phase electricity that is already existing overhead and bring it down so that we have a more robust electricity system, electrical system running through the park. Conduit was already installed before paving bricks were, so that we have the ability to carry that electricity throughout the park, especially when we put the lighting fixtures in the second phase in. We'll make sure they coexist with electrical boxes so that we have that going. But we'll have at least going to the pavilion enhanced electricity and can be drawn from the panels that are in the corner. And we're also working to do a better job to shape those panels or camouflage them so people aren't, let's say, just noticing them and doing something funky to them sitting there in the corner. So thanks to DPW especially, they've been highly versatile during this project. Appreciate what they're adding to it. And to Caitlin as well, who shows up at a moment's notice lately. She's been terrific with marijuana. So there's that. Ben will have more, I'm sure, from Park and Tree Board coming up in a second, but first, Mary.
Okay, well, as Bernadette was saying about the firemen and their old timers banquet, it was amazing, their dedication, you know, I'm in awe of them, and they're volunteers and they drop everything. And during the banquet, having 2 calls, they didn't blink an eye, they took off their suit coats, put on their gear and walked out the door. And I thank them, and, you know, we know that we're protected by our firemen, so thank you. And Ray had mentioned the Hope for Children. It's a free event. I think you had said that. There's going to be bounce houses, food, games, and they request people bring a non-perishable, ready-to-eat food item to put towards the spot, the Scotty's Food Pantry Drive. So again, that's May 10th, Saturday from 11 until 1. The Saratoga County Department of Aging and Youth Services is looking for volunteers to deliver meals to homebound citizens in the greater Greenfield area. You can work 1 to 5 days a week delivering meals. They will train you. They ask that volunteers have a valid driver's license and their own vehicle. And you can call the Department of Aging and Youth at 518-363-4020 if you're interested. That's it.
Thank you. Sorry to kind of take over your library
Oh,
liaison.
no, you know more than I do.
Ben.
All right, Caitlin wrote up something for me to read. Despite the rain, this is the Park and Tree Board. Despite the rain, the Park and Tree Board had a wonderful time celebrating Arbor Day and getting started on some tree planting on Saturday. So in Milton Ave, you'll see some little trees.
2 new ones,
we're
yeah.
gonna put in. Sidewalk looks really good too, by the way.
Thank you, DPW.
Thank you, DPW. They want to thank everyone who was willing to come out in the rain, many of whom were willing to help out and get their hands dirty, and others who were attentive and asked many thoughtful questions. We also want to thank our own Christopher Williams. Yes, thank you, Christopher, for taking the time to teach us about proper tree planting, pruning, and care in the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Saratoga County Master Forest Owner Program, who provided the trees and other supplies for the event. And I also want to add, Christopher Williams is a great asset to this village. He's the one who really plants the trees. Because of the weather and some other factors, we weren't able to get both trees in the ground Saturday, so another big thank you to DPW for showing up bright and early this morning with some much needed soil and many helping hands. We are very excited for the 2 new trees on Milton Ave and are eager to keep getting more in the ground. Park and Tree Board is also excited to see things moving forward in Wiswall Park. DPW did a great job getting the site ready, and as of today, pavers are being laid. We're excited to watch things unfold in the coming weeks. The board has also been brainstorming ideas for general beautification around the business district and are hoping to help facilitate a bee spawn bloom project during the growing season. More details on this will be coming, so that's what we voted on tonight. The next Park and Tree meeting is Tuesday, May 19th at 7 p.m. It'll take place at the Cornell Cooperative Conference Room, 50 East High Street. As always, if you'd like to plant a tree, please reach out to the Park and Tree Board with any questions you might have. So that's from Caitlin. And then the Committee on the Arts just wrapped up an amazing random acts of poetry, and April is Poetry Month series of events, and many successful, well-attended events. I went to the one on Saturday, poetry reading at Brookside, and thanks to Brookside too for their partnership. There's another open mic night, May 9th at the Real McCoy. I think they're going to be regrouping now that they've done a lot over the course of April. They are looking at banners, upcoming projects include, and then also I'll introduce this idea that the Park and Tree Board has about beautifying using plants and with the businesses. They're also working on planters, and they're always looking for new people to join. So they have a Facebook page, and their website I think is still down, but they have a Facebook page, also Committee on the Arts. And their next meeting is May 7th, 7 p.m. at Brookside Museum.
Mr. DPW down there, Sean.
So they've been busy.
Yes, they have.
As far as Wiswall Park, kind of heard the new sidewalk with pavers, relocated the flagpole.
That will be sanded and painted for those wondering.
Right, yeah,
They'll be
you
using
mentioned
fire
that.
truck.
And they also installed all the conduit for the electrical lines for the light standards, and also put in the forms for the light standards. So that's good. We telemetering for Colonial Hills Tower is working finally, and John Street has been drained, and the fire department has been notified. Let's see, we have brush pickup a little over halfway on the first pass. Last day to put out brush for the streets is May 15th, so put that on your calendar. Twin Bridges and County Wastes have already been picking bags for customers and will continue until fall. Been working on a punch list from the inspection of Kelly Park Playground, and we'll have it completed Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. The street sweeper has been out, and they'll continue until they complete that. Now, he also sent an email regarding the paving list. So
I wouldn't announce those yet. I just want to see what the CHIPS budget is before we go there.
Okay.
So I would suggest that they have an aggressive schedule throughout the village, I will say. And would that be fair characterization?
yeah, I mean, I'm just eyeballing it here. Yeah, we probably got 4 miles, 3 miles?
Yeah, it's close, so that's why I wanna make sure before we say anything to CHIPS. We did increase a little bit of the paving, village, contribution this year, but, obviously, CHIPS would help immensely more to make sure we can cover all the streets they have on the list. If not, it goes to next year, that's true.
Yeah, Scott had notified me about the West High Street being in village jurisdiction for maintenance.
Mhm.
I was able to work with Signals at DOT because there was already an existing condition there. They were able to put video detection in at that location, so he'll be able to go right up to the intersection without interfering with any of the detection issues, so.
For those who don't understand what he's
Yeah,
saying.
okay.
Yeah.
Somebody translate.
So, the Route 67 connection, which is called West High Street for all intents and purposes, from what is basically the bottom of the West High Hill up to the traffic light at 50 and 67, is technically a village-maintained connector of Route 67. It is us that has to repave it and handle it, although we do still talk to the state if we have to make modifications or have to dig into it, because it is still technically part of the state route system, but we have jurisdiction and requirements to do the repaving, plowing, etc. on that street. It's a misnomer for a lot of people because they assume that that is the state that controls that. It's us in that case.
Yeah, it was news to me.
Yep.
Until I actually asked the resident engineer, and they're like, oh yeah, that's it.
Thanks, guys. Anything else you want to give us?
Is that true for Route 50 too?
No.
No.
So this is an oddball scenario.
Yeah, this is like, totally out of the blue. It's uncharacteristic.
I was gonna say, I couldn't imagine that would be very common.
Yeah,
If they want control, right?
Because there's detector loops currently in there, if you went to do a mill and fill, which is, grind down and repave,
Yeah.
you tear the loops up, which would be on the village to replace. Now that they put video detection in, they become obsolete, so.
Detection to see how much traffic there is? Is that what the?
Oh, no, the
No,
detection
change the
to
light.
activate the phases.
Oh,
of the
that's
signal.
the light,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so it won't be glued, basically, or something like that for too long.
Yeah.
I always say you learn something new. 3 years of this now, I learn something new every day that defies a certain logic more often than not, and that one did, back when I learned that. I do want to address briefly, if I can, the monopole question, because it's got brought up this weekend. I asked Don Rhodes, who is our water consultant, essentially, or the guy that kind of set this into motion, gave us that resolution we passed a couple of meetings ago, all that stuff, to give me the exact numbers for folks, because a lot of numbers have been punted around, I think, without full knowledge of what's going on. Understand that the monopole is actually going to be 8 feet below the base of the water tower because of the elevation differential that goes on over there.
Oh, really?
Yes, so
Oh, it's not double the water tower.
it is not double the water tower. I will give you the exact numbers here. Based on, we had a tank assessment from 2022. The tank itself, according to that, was at its tallest point 94 feet. But let's see here. The top of the existing tank is technically, if you're taking the monopole as the measuring stick because it starts below, and looking at also the equipment going on top, 110 feet with AT&T's equipment at 116.5. So if you're taking the top of the tank, it's 70 feet more than the tank is, more or less, plus a 4-foot lightning rod extending to make sure it's protected. So just wanted to get those numbers out there because I know people were saying double, triple, things like
But
that.
where's the 70 feet? You just said the water tank's
So
194?
180 minus the 110 that they're measuring as that elevation means that you'll go 70 feet beyond the top of the tower according to this, according to what was measured out.
It will go 70 feet.
70 feet above, yep. And again, part of the issue is that the trees that are there are in the 100+ range and will continue to grow, not obviously excessively, but over the next 50 years, and that's the plan here, to not have to swap out these things that, every 50 years, if you can avoid it, the trees are going to continue to grow. So you gotta make sure that at least the first 4 sets of equipment, because we won't guarantee the 5th set will always be above it, but the first 4 will be above the tree line, and that means, again, you don't go right at the 180 mark, you're a little bit lower than the 180 mark for that first set. That's about 10 feet per set of equipment to make sure that you've cleared that tree at that point, or the tree line at that point. So I just want to get the numbers out there for those that have kind of been doing the wrong numbers.
There's no wiggle room to make the tower shorter.
There's not really an ability to, because again, we have to guarantee those 4 that they would be above the tree line. And again, you don't line them on the same level on the monopole. You have AT&T on top, and then one of the 3 left, Verizon, T-Mobile, or Boost / Dish Network, on the next, one of the 2 remaining, the last one. And we'll figure out from there, I mean, we'll probably go priority based on bid, who wants to be the second highest.
And we're sure they still need it, given what's happening, or the other poles going up.
Yep, they are absolutely behind the idea. This is part of the reason why they're willing to subsidize the $425,000 cost for this pole, for this amount. So, yes.
So, if they're obligated to pay for the pole.
They'll pay for the pole. It may affect rent value, but then on the flip side, rent value should go up too because of extended height. So the calculus is a little weird. And plus, some of these contracts are old contracts, so they need to be pushed up anyway. They didn't always have the right escalators associated. Now we're going to be starting from scratch with all 4 of them, basically because we've got a new thing to present. We've got to take into account, what they are putting into it or not, and how to handle that. We should see an escalation is what Don feels overall in terms of the money that we'll receive from this. But it's not even just, again, go back to the resolution. This is about safe drinking water. That is the #1 thing. And then also making sure we have safety in our cell service. And I was talking to Chief Crow just the other day about this, and he'll probably be providing a letter to the zoning board because remember, our fire protection district is on the other side of that boundary, basically. And he is mortified of how bad the service is in certain areas as you go toward North Line and Rolland and all that.
But the new poles in Milton won't help that piece.
It would be too far to the side, basically.
The ones near the county jail, that was the one we recently approved. And then there's one way out toward, you were at that meeting and I can't remember, they yanked you, I couldn't sit there. So it's a little too far.
How tall is the one at, by in the county?
I can get you that number, I
Remember?
don't know off the top of my head, but I can let you know.
So I think a lot of people, when they do the math on these poles, assume that what we currently have on the John Street Tower is supposed to have the coverage for that certain zone in there, but because of all the growth especially, and some of the other failures along the way, I think of how they were doing things, it doesn't. It basically has a dead reach that's going in that direction. And the carriers are extraordinarily confident that this is going to improve matters by leaps and bounds.
Are we getting more carriers?
We had approved Dish Boost Mobile a few years ago. They wanted to go in the water tank, and when we realized we got the reports from the water tank saying this is causing issues, we're like, don't go up there. We're going to basically just take you on down again. Why would you waste the money doing it? So they've been in holding pattern for a while. So when we started talking about this, we said, hey, are you interested? And they're like, absolutely, we're interested to go up on a new monopole.
All right, so one more, just one more. So
But
4
then-
total?
But then also the county emergency services may be the 5th, or you can't go and build a new set. You might as well build the 5th one now, which will, for now, be above the tree line, but sell it with the knowledge that we're not gonna go cut the tree if it ever exceeds it, so that's gonna be on them for that 5th grouping later on down the line. But again, the first 4 need to be above the tree line, and the height is ensuring they are, basically.
Right, so there's 2 array levels, you're saying, the top one and the ones below?
No, there's 4.
Oh, none of them are on the same level?
They can't be because there's just not enough room, and they need to go 360 for coverage.
Okay.
That's the other thing that's gonna allow them to do better too, because when you're on the side of a water tower, think of the thickness of a water tower, and so your spacing of it is a lot different than when you're at a monopole, basically covering and being able to shoot out in all directions more consistently in that scenario too. That's another reason why they're not doing this as much anymore.
Are you worried about how this will look? Is there any way to make it look better?
The Frankentree approach, or the monopining they call it, I'll be honest, Ben, it looks ridiculous. Others have shared that view too, on one of the Facebook pages. I travel enough that I've seen some of these, and you look at them and it's like, you know, it's 2025, maybe we should just accept the fact that there's gonna be a little bit of an eyesore with certain things out there, but it comes with a gain for everybody involved too, because cell service, I think that somebody put up numbers in 70s and 80% of people don't have landlines anymore. It is the lifeline, and then a lot of people are using for internet service. 5G service basically comes off of the internet calls, or the cellular calls, I should say.
Best you can hope for is maybe a powder coat of a sky blue or sky gray, so it blends a little bit.
Well, we'll put that into the queue for that. On that one.
Nice color.
Well, say that again?
To be fair, because it's really nice and bright today, nice day, coming into the village, I took a second to look at the water tower a little more than usual. The crown already is pretty, it's not great to look at, so I know folks are concerned, but I'm not sure that it's gonna be much different than, you know.
I should also raise that this notion about extra noise, this is a non-starter. One of the gains of keeping it in that zone is that we're going to be utilizing equipment already on the ground. It's just gonna hook in and go to a different point. So basically these transmitters, receivers are up there, but they'll have a longer line going down to the same equipment that's already around the water tower processing the data, or sending it where it needs to go, or receiving the stuff. So there's no change in that. Also, Don pointed out, there's not necessarily a light plan, but if it is going to be on there for strobe effect up top, it will be upward promoted, because the idea is you're doing it for airplanes. What else are you going to be doing it for? So there won't be the need to direct it toward the ground. So the only time you actually see it is if you're looking straight up at it at that point, because of the way they can control the way it emits the light. So, you know, we read these things, we want to get the right answers out there, and I asked Don some questions once we got past the weekend today, and he got us the answers. We appreciate that very much from him. Carla and I are working on getting the AT&T lease first kind of squared away, because they're the ones that have led the effort for this monopole, and we appreciate that work by them. So we're trying to finish up that. They'll probably have the #1 position up there based on the work they've done to get this to be reality. And then we're trying to figure out who goes 2, 3, 4 basically, and we'll use the same agreement as a template essentially for everybody else's. You'll see those hopefully eventually, hopefully very soon, because they'll have to be approved by the board. Just to give you that update too.
Thank you.
That's all I got. Let's go to public comment. Any issue? 3 minutes. I do want to do one thing though, based on what we saw following or during even some of that last public comment. Carla and I had talked before the workshop back when about some ground rules, especially that night, because we knew it could turn contentious, etc. Everybody was great that night, so we do thank everybody for having the best behavior per se, or whatever you want to call it. Like kindergarten teacher, I say stuff like that. It's so unintended, so I apologize. But here are the ground rules for our public comment sessions. Generally, I will read tonight. Number 1, all comments and questions from the public shall be directed to the board only, not specific department heads, consultants, or other members of the public. 2, no one shall make statements during the meeting that involve personal, impertinent, or slanderous attacks on any group, organization, or individual, a member of the board, an employee of the village, a member of the audience, or a member of the public, regardless of whether the individual sought to be named is present. The use of profane, vulgar, threatening, racial, or ethnic slurs is prohibited. 3, no one will disrupt the meeting with loud outbursts or other disruptive conduct or behavior, including but not limited to obscenity, heckling, taunting, cheering, physical threats, abusive language, etc. at any time during the meeting. 4, failure to comply with the foregoing rules may result in early termination of allotted commenting time for a member of the public, a denial of future requests to speak, removal from the meeting, and any other actions deemed necessary by the presiding officer or by majority vote of the board. Okay, we've dispensed with that. Raise your hand if you'd like to speak. You'll have 3 minutes. Law, come on down for round 3. And Eve's got her hand back up. I'm not sure. Did you take her down so she wants to speak down? Okay, great. Yep, sounds good. So we'll go Law, then Eve, and Law,
Sure.
Name and address one more time.
Sure. Law Ryan, 327 Jatsky Drive, Milton. And shucks, I really wanted to swear, but I guess I'm. So, to address the comment that Frank said to me about the Times Union article, I did not seek that out. I'm the calm one in my neighborhood, someone not so calm. I'm not sure exactly how it started, but the reporter reached out to me. And no less than 5 times in my conversation with them, I said, go to the village website, we have new advisory committee, meeting minutes are there. And I'm gonna say this to the board of trustees, please go there and read all the meeting minutes from January 2024 to May 2024. I think there's one missing from our last meeting. I'll make sure that gets posted, communicated. And then I'm going to, I'll read some of this today, but I'll make sure this gets put into the meeting minutes for today, which is comparison of rates for other water providers in the area, which will show that the outer village is way higher than others. So the other thing is, dealing with the reporter, my mistake is what I do all the time is have a conversation, just talk to her, right? Probably should have taken the advice of council and just said, email me the questions. In addition to look at the meeting minutes, the article will write itself for you, right? So some of my words were taken out of context, but lesson learned for that. The other thing, as soon as I got off the phone, I texted Frank, give him a heads up. So I just want people to know that this wasn't any, backdoor communication and not keeping the village up to date. Plus, Frank and I have had multiple conversations on this topic since last June, probably at least 5. So he knows my opinion on this. Kind of going back to the town of Niskayuna, you'll see that a reference in one of the meeting minutes. It was in their spring 2023 where they increased their rate from $30 to $78 because they weren't charging their residents enough to cover the cost of production. Right? That number that we've calculated for the village is $85 for 6 months. Right? And this was a very key point that the comptroller mentioned. Water is a utility. It should not cost the municipality money or make money for its residents, right? So unless you're saying that the village has tons of money that they could just give discounts on water, or why stop there? Give discounts on sewer, give discounts on electricity, whatever. Then, or go the complete opposite and say free water for all residents and then just charge the taxes appropriately. Having a slight discount just does not make sense. Just charge what the cost of production. That is roughly going to be $17,000.
15 seconds.
For 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
If that applies.
So much to say. The one thing is that $85 is still a benefit. When the mayor says, what do I get from my village taxes? It is by far the lowest in the area, even the lowest in the state. So when I post these rates, you will see comparatively, even when that is increased to $85, which I recommend, it will be a complete cheap water comparatively. Thanks.
Okay, let's go to Eve. Eve, I hope you're still going to be at my birthday.
Well, did you say this coming Friday, the 2nd or the 9th?
The 2nd.
I have an appointment at 9:30, but I'll come late if you're still there. But at any rate.
There you go. Go ahead.
At any rate, I just wanted to say, if we could maybe slow people down by giving them tickets, that might be, a dual purpose. We can get money for it, revenue, and it'll slow people down. It is very dangerous to just take the garbage cans out on garbage day because you just don't even know how fast they're coming down this road. And the other thing, since I'm on the parks and trees, a couple of things. Number one, I just take great pride in trying to make our village very pretty. And we're very happy about the Bee Spa in bloom and hope that people will participate with it so we can kind of fill in some of these vacant places where dead trees have been taken down or, planters in front of your businesses, et cetera, et cetera. I'm very excited about that. But what would really be great if we could maybe somehow or another pretty up the old Ricketts property. And I know that it's been tied up with the state, but can we find that canvas, the big backdrop that was on the car wash that, Ballston Spa, 5,000, whatever numbers of points of light. would just at least look prettier than what we see right now. I think that would be wonderful. And I did bring that up once before. Another concern I have is the couple of burned down houses in my neighborhood. There's one on Center Street that, has been, well, it was tarped, but the tarp has blown off in pieces all over the neighborhood and the roof is uncovered. Just one side it looks horrible, and it does have a condemned sign on the outside, at least now. But what can we do if it's condemned? How long before the village could, or somebody could take it down there and on West North Street as well. Anyway, those are my two concerns. I would really like to see that Ballston Spa Points of Light canvas hung on the fence of Ricketts. At least it would hide some of the ugliness. It'd be great. So, and
Don't
everybody
run-
plant flowers.
Don't run away, because I do want to address a couple things there. First, ask Mary actually she brought this up to me, so she's been a good scribe for you the other day with respect to the Ricketts property, and I asked her, I got to reach out to DEC, get another update, because they don't deliver them themselves, it seems like. So when I make that call, we don't control the property, we can't go on the property technically, but we can always ask to see what they might allow us to do or not to do. So kind of want a list of things to ask for or allowance, or how we would get it to happen. So if you and Mary could work together on getting me a script for what you want, I'm happy to go to DEC and make that request. With respect to Center Street, I think the property you're talking about may have had some issues with deaths involved, kind of convoluting the approach to try to get some of the things taken care of, or at least one of the Center Street properties, I believe that's the case of. And there were some people that may have been interested in it, but because it's an estate scenario, it became convoluted there. Long story short, we don't have the right as a village to just go and collect the property. There was a bill in the Assembly, and I want to say the Senate, in 2022 about zombie properties that got approved but not signed, I want to say, or not reconciled to get signed eventually. Because I remember Mary Beth Walsh was reaching out to me about that, but I can't find it on the books. I don't think it proceeded or progressed. I can't find it anywhere. Yeah, so the zombie properties, we just don't have the options you would hope for. We can try to take them to court to find them, to force them to do things, but if they're dead, that's not going to work very easily, and the estate situation makes it even tougher sometimes to do that. So we are actively looking at this. We agree with you wholeheartedly. Our options are limited in certain of these cases, but we're working on those things, Steve. So I know it's tough to ask for patience for me, or for you to accept that as an answer right now, but please exhibit patience as we try to continue to deal with those types of situations.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else in the house? I don't believe I see you in there. Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Mike Ikuchi, 3 Encore Drive. This evening, the power of the gavel was demonstrated in dramatic fashion by the mayor. The mayor has explained numerous times that he's the presiding officer of these meetings, and we all respect that. However, I find it terribly ironic that the mayor chose to read the guidelines about public comment just a couple minutes ago, because earlier in this meeting, he violated those guidelines when he attacked Trustee Baskin, saying that the statement that Trustee Baskin made could not have been his words. And in fact, he insinuated, if not said directly, that a different village resident must have been the author of those words. I think those points were fully inappropriate, especially given that you explained how the public should be dealing with public comment. With respect to the budget process, just a quick review of timeline. The budget was presented to the public and to the board on March 28th. There was a public hearing on April 14th. I, like I think many people, was not able to attend the public hearing on April 14th. There was a budget workshop on April 21, in which no public comment was allowed. A couple of trustees asked a number of questions and raised some concerns about the budget at that budget workshop on April 21. at least 2 different times, the mayor responded, sorry, we'll just have to agree to disagree. There was no attempt to reach any sort of compromise or develop a plan based on the input from the trustees. With respect to the monopole, I do want to emphasize for people who might be interested, there will be a hearing this Wednesday, April 30, about the monopole up at the John Street location. Having lived in that neighborhood for the last 40 years, I can tell you that there is a lot of concern on the part of people who live there. And the information that was provided tonight goes far beyond anything that's been available to the public up to now. So I encourage people to look into it and attend that hearing on April 30 if interested in the future of that monopole. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Karen, Ray, after that?
Karen Avarius, 10 East High Street. I just saw, I didn't know what happened with the library, but I really hope that, like you said, we all go, I hope the collections, that was my first thought, that something happened to all those books, and if any damage happened to them, I know it takes, you gotta toss them. So I'm hoping that we can provide the community with some sort of library this summer, because that is a huge piece to a community and for a lot of our families, the summer reading program that they do a lot of things for the kids to keep reading over the summer and just be able to do summer book reading. I know the school district uses the library, needs the library for kids to take books out for summer reading, so I really hope that we can do something for the library. That's a huge concern of mine, and I think it makes this village really an important thing for reading is power, knowledge is power. Thank you.
I have a quick question, actually. Is the school's library available outside of the regular school year to students, or?
I'm gonna say probably not. I can't say if they have summer school, probably for the kids that go to summer school, but for the most part, no, it's closed down, librarians don't work in the summer. And they have to do an inventory, and every librarian, school librarian is a little different.
Okay, thank you.
I like her answer. That's what I was gonna.
Oh,
Yes.
you concur. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
No, no problem. Ray Otten, 16 Norfolk Avenue. 2 things. I'm hoping everybody has taken a ride up to the V up by the Dunkin' Donuts where you're gonna have your meeting. We dumped 400 bulbs into that last fall, and I think 387 of them had come up, because there's just a plethora of color in there, and it was so satisfying to see that all the work actually worked. I'm hoping that going forward, we can add some more perennials to that to have that looking good all the time. We try to, we being Rotary and Kate Van Buren, who I want to thank tremendously for cleaning it up this year. We work hard at keeping that nice, and we want it to look good for Memorial Day, because we know every Memorial Day we got the parade just before Memorial Day. So we try and make it look good. So take a run up there, please, take a look at it, it's great. Second thing, this village has a noise ordinance that states that there should be no loud noises created from construction, etc., before 7 a.m. in residential areas. For the past at least 3 years, I've been getting woken up every Thursday morning at 4:30, because that's when they start dumping the dumpsters. They start with the one at Union Firehouse, and they go down through town. You can hear them, ba-bang, 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 and I'm surprised nobody else has said anything about it. And I was just hoping that maybe the village could get in touch with County Waste and say, hey, 4:30 is a little early, okay? So if that could be done, that would be great, and I would love to not hear them.
I live behind the Baptist church, and it's very early.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's County Waste. They, 4:30 in the morning. I called them one time, and they said, well, that's when our guy starts his route. Okay, I guess we can let it go then.
Thank you. Still trying to do the research here too with you, right?
It's not there.
It's not there?
No.
Okay, we'll do it in a sec.
You need to 45 days.
Yeah.
June 12th.
Do you have a date?
June 12th.
June 12th? Can't be. May 12th is the next meeting.
I understand, but you do 45 days.
Oh, I see what you're saying. What would the meeting be, I guess, would be the
I don't
question.
know, whatever the meeting after June 12th is.
Sorry. Anybody else? Sorry about that. Okay, seeing none, board response, et cetera, whatever we call this section, you know by now. Go ahead. Other business, I think actually is the name for it.
Andrea was doing curbside pickup before.
They have halted that for now because of the access to building issue. There will be no late fees currently, and they're working on getting access started up for other libraries as well, so that they're looking into that. So I would actually direct people to the library's website and Facebook page, where they're going to continuously update for ability and access, etc.
But by the end, by the end of the school year, would they be able to do that again?
I don't know, because the state of that building may be such that I don't want anybody in there still, based on what's being worked on, so we'd have to see. So we'll play by ear at this point and see where we go with that.
I thought we said we were gonna forgive late fees and not do them anymore.
I
Was
thought
that a
so
couple years
too.
ago?
Yeah, maybe they're just reassuring that if you're excessively late or something, maybe they were doing something with that. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with that.
It was a couple years ago.
It was.
It said
You're right.
no more.
100%, you're right.
Yeah.
I got a
it's
question.
south.
Has there been any change or addition or just difference in police interpretation services?
I saw your question. I didn't see an answer from Chief
Right.
Bush. I can't give you an answer on that. That said, I want to give you something else actually that you continuously ask about, because we had gotten, and you were on this call with me about CDTA real quick.
Okay, yeah. Well, just before
Okay,
we move on,
sure.
just could we get an answer? Because there are resources like, I work at Department of Health, and there's resources out there that we could bring into the village that are not ICE connected. So that would be good. I know it's not the first option right now, but.
Well, why don't you send Chief Bush the option by
Well,
email,
I just-
so that he has.
Well, I was trying to understand where he is right now. Like, he hasn't responded, so I was waiting to hear if maybe something's changed since last time he spoke. So, yeah, if you could, I'll send him another email asking him, what's the current situation, and if he'd appreciate any additional information.
I think it would be good, because if there's something available that the state makes available to municipalities, that would be great, because the other thought was maybe to utilize LifeWorks, but haven't gotten.
I mean, there's services, but there may be some cost involved, but it's, at a reduced,
Yeah.
not a price.
If you could find out perhaps the cost before even reaching out to him, maybe you have all that information for him, and make it a lot easier. For
Yeah,
him.
I just didn't know if to do any work before just hearing from him. Is this of interest to him? Is this something, but you're saying it could be helpful, so.
I think it would be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, CDTA has been still working on the shelters, and the problem they run into, they don't have one so much with the shelter by the parking lot, Reshop. I think I tried to bid that out, but they want to do everything at once, and the problem is actually at Doubleday Woods. So the general plan of attack was this: it was going to be the bus shelter, Reshop, and consolidation of stops to achieve that as well. And some of that's already going on, now it's the shelter. They're going to add a crosswalk at McMaster. There's already a pre-existing indentation on the other side of McMaster's crossing there on Route 50. They're going to utilize that as a kind of closer to the traffic light crosswalk. More on the other crosswalk in a second, because I know what's going on your mind. But they were going to put a shelter where the bench area is currently at Doubleday Woods Drive up there. Unfortunately, in doing discovery on this, they realized that there is non-conduited electrical service or gas service of some sort. I think that's electrical, yeah, it was electrical, that is running through there that will prohibit them, because of where it is, from essentially locating the shelter there. We have put them in touch with our National Grid folks to see if National Grid is willing to work with them to not charge essentially money to maybe relocate or handle that, and so that it would still be a viable option. Because then if it's not, there aren't very pretty options from there as to where to put a shelter without inhibiting somebody's property, home, etc. on either side of that intersection, let's call it, across Doubleday Woods Drive. So they're working on it, but like everything in the state area, Sean, as my witness, it's probably gonna be a delay further now because of that aspect. They're gonna continue to work on the one they can do.
Yeah, can they just continue with that one?
They're trying to, but, you know, equity would say, or economies of scale would say, try to do both at the same time when they're in the same zone, but they can't. They're going to have to cut bait on that one. With respect to the other crosswalk, you may have some knowledge on this. I'm not gonna make you do it because we're leaving out of it, because I think you're a project manager for some repaving that's gonna be going on 5067 on Church. But we're trying to put forth the idea to DOT, hey, why don't you take care of the sidewalks and the striping, because we're not gonna stripe it now if we know it's gonna get repaved any season now here. So, and also, they were bestowing on us a requirement to do night work, which means we would have to get a contractor ourselves out there or get DPW to do it at night. Good luck. They work enough hours, and we are talking about their overtime as it is, so it's already problematic for us. So we're working with them, Labella is, to figure out the right plan of attack. And we also warned them, hey, CDTA is trying to put this crosswalk down here, so why don't they manage all this at once for all the parties involved? So that is the last I talked to Joe Lanero over at Labella about this situation. I look forward to what developed since then. And again, we purposely asked you to be kind of left out of this discussion because of the conflict, et cetera. We don't want to get you in trouble and all that stuff. So, but I'm aware that you're involved with it, but we are trying to make sure we navigate this to make sure all parties get what they need at the end of the day with respect to the crosswalks.
Would we still be responsible for the ramps?
The idea is the ramping is the work that we would have to do normally, and we would have to be in the actual street, and that's why they'd be forcing us into night work to do it. So there's stuff already going on in prep and work by the state. We're saying, why don't you take care of the whole thing and charge us back basically for what the spending is, because it'll probably be less for them if they're mobilized already in that zone. So we're just trying to figure this out. Yeah,
don't ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did want to give you that as well. I meant to do it last
It's
meeting.
taken forever. It's been
I know
4 years.
I know, but again, why would we spend the money getting the striping in, or anybody got to spend the money getting the striping in right now? It's going to be paved right on over. And now we know CDTA is going to do one on this side, basically, or down further. Get everybody taken care of.
Okay, thanks for working on that.
Yeah.
Just touching on the Doubleday Wood stop, we understand how important it is. We spent like majority of the time, can you put it here, can you do this, can you do that, and it just, there's really no feasible
easy
way right now.
Because you can't have the bus basically go past that street and stop at the next, the equidistant location, because the bus would be blocking the driveway at that point, or the street at that point, so it doesn't work that easy.
Yeah, so.
Well, one shelter is better than no shelters.
Oh, agreed,
yeah.
agreed, but we would like to get that one up there because
Especially with your seniors.
we understand, seniors involved up there and everything else, so we'll continue to work with them and hopefully Grid as well to see what they can do. So hopefully that provides a little bit of insight of the day-to-day around here.
Thank you.
We do have to approve a public hearing in the distance here. A motion to set a public hearing on section 8 for June 23rd, 2025 at 7:01 p.m.
This program, just to be clear for folks.
Section 8 program, thank you.
It's already within the village, and it's just each year we have to do this.
Can I get a motion on that,
You
please?
said 7:30?
7:01 p.m.
Oh, sorry.
June 23rd, 2025, section 8 program. Those are the
So
three key
is
parts.
it to approve it or
To
say
approve a
any-
public hearing, to set a public hearing.
But like, what's the topic exactly of, I mean, it's the Section 8 program, is it something about the Section 8 program?
It's
or-
the Housing Choice Voucher Program, PHA plan.
Yeah,
It's the one that Mastriani and Associates, does for
Gem,
us.
yeah.
Gem does for the village every single year. He's gonna come to that meeting.
It's a
to-
5-year update, basically,
And then
we
he's
do.
gonna present everything, and then there's a resolution at the meeting for you to adopt to keep the program moving forward.
If you put the title of the program in the motion, I'll make it. You just said it.
Section
How
8
about, how
Housing
about
Choice
you,
Voucher.
tell me what you wanted to say, go ahead.
No, I just want the name of the program in there.
Can I get a motion to set a public hearing on the Section 8
Housing Choice Voucher Program, PHA plan for 2025.
for June 23rd, 2025 at 7:01 PM? Trustee Benedicto. Trustee Raymond, discussion.
and why does that have to be so far away in time?
Under the
45.
federal, it's a federal program, so it has to be a 45-day notice period.
All in favor?
And this is the problem that we don't have enough Section 8 vouchers used, they're not all
That
used.
you're gonna get discussion on,
Right.
when he shows up for this
Right.
too. So
Okay.
we'll have him do a presentation, I think first, do public hearing at that point, and he can, actively answer any questions still
great.
at that point, okay? All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for patience on that. And with that, hearing nothing else from anybody, can I get a motion that the vouchers be audited and the meeting be adjourned at 9:21 PM?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin,
One second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Everybody have a great night.
Alright, this one's graduating, so.
I don't know, I didn't figure out in the
Yes,
morning.
exactly. I know. It's disappointing. because that was good.
Well, I'm sure that.
You really do it for what you